Hi guys, let me show you how I went from this to this using one of Photoshop's most underrated tools, the Puppet Warp tool. And at the end of the video, I'll show you an easy way to colorize this pattern in seconds. So let's jump in. I begin just by drawing a few simple botanical elements in my sketchbook, just using a simple graphite pencil, keeping this part really uncomplicated and just having fun. I want to give myself a choice of elements to use later, so I'm just drawing a few leaves, petals, some branches and little dots, just a few things I can then arrange into more complicated plants. When that's ready, I will scan the drawings and import them into Photoshop, adjust the contrast, saturation, and cut them out of the background. So I have something that looks like this. Every individual element is on its own layer here, and I can begin work on arranging my plants and the pattern. I'm just going to turn off some of these that I think are ready to go and don't need anything done to them, just so I have more room on the artboard. I've made a few copies of this curved branch here, and I'm going to begin to arrange it so it looks more flowy and like it's all part of a single plant. When you press Command-T on your keyboard and right-click on an element, it brings up this Free Transform menu. So I'm just going to flip it around and then tidy up these little ends here. Next, I'm going to make more copies of these little bills here. Hold down Shift to adjust the size and arrange them on this plant. And once again, I'm just going to trim off the ends of these curves using the eraser. Now I can add some foliage to this plant. Holding down Option, I'm going to drag out a copy of this leaf here. Hold down Shift to reduce the size, and I'm just going to position a few leaves here and there using the Free Transform shortcut I mentioned earlier. Flipping them around, rotating them, and positioning the leaves so they look nice. You can vary up the sizes of leaves, of course, and this is where we come to our Puppet Warp tool for the first time. It can be found in the Edit menu. All you need to do with this tool is simply click on, first of all, the points that you want to stay put, and then select the point that you want to modify. And here I'm just going to drag this belly of the leaf up to create this kind of curve. Here's another leaf, but I'd like to create a stronger curve at the end of this one. So I need to position my anchor points near the tip. So you can see how the Puppet Warp has allowed us to use one single element and create a variety of modifications. And here I'd like to elongate this leaf. But if I pull it up, it gets a little too chunky. So I want to make it longer but thinner. So I'm going to come back to Puppet Warp again, add some anchor points on the ends and stretch it out. And you can see it's getting longer but staying skinny. And a couple of points for that slight curve. So you can see that working this way, we've managed to create this whole plant just with a handful of elements. The next thing I want to do is actually flatten this whole thing so it's on one single layer. I'm going to make sure the background is locked so I don't accidentally select it. Select this whole plant and type Command-G on my keyboard to create a group for all of these layers. I can toggle this little eye to make sure I've selected the correct layers. And I can see that this little guy doesn't actually belong in this group. So I'm going to grab him and pull him out of there. Now I can select the group and press Command-E on my keyboard to merge it into one layer. The reason I do this is, first of all, it keeps the file size manageable. And secondly, when I go to turn on pattern preview and start to arrange the pattern, it's going to be a lot easier to work with these elements when they're just one single layer. I'm going to turn this plant off now to give myself room to move on to the next arrangement. So as you can see, I have this petal that I've placed on its side and reflected a copy of it on the opposite end. So I'm just going to come back to my trusty Puppet Warp tool, place 3 anchor points and give it a slight curve. I'll do the same to the other side. and build the rest out using copies of these petals in the shape of a fan. And I'm literally just using the puppet warp tool to massage each of these petals into the right shape. If you need to unselect an anchor point, you can just click on it and press backspace on your keyboard. And I think I'm going to recycle this little bell from earlier to complete this flower. I like reusing elements in this way because it creates a certain visual repetition within the design, which is not a bad thing. Now I'm going to bring back all of the design elements that I've had hidden. And now that I have them crowded on here, I'm actually realizing that my artboard is not big enough. I can increase the size of my artboard by coming up to Image, Canvas Size, and adjust the size here. Now I can see that the white background is too small for my canvas size. So I'm going to select that layer, press G on my keyboard to bring up the bucket fill tool and fill the rest of the layer with white color. Great, so now I can come up to View and turn on Pattern Preview mode and begin to arrange my pattern. This is where we need to come back to our good friend Puppet Warp, because I think this stock right here is a little too straight. I'd like to tweak it a little bit. Okay, our pattern is ready. Now, as promised, let's add some color to this. Now I'm going to go ahead and hold down Shift and select all of the layers except for the background. Press Command G to group them and Command E to flatten them into a single layer. Next, I'm going to add a new layer above, fill it with color, and I want to clip it to the layer below, which I can do by pressing Option Command G on the keyboard. Over here are the blending modes for our layers, and I'm going to change mine to multiply, and all I need to do now is add some color to the background. I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. Let me know in the comments if there's something else you want me to talk about next time. I have lots of fun stuff planned for us on this channel, so I hope you stick around.